Hi everybody, welcome to Sonia IAS and welcome back to the Environment High Yielding Topic Series for Prelims 2023. In this, we are going to again continue with the species. This is the part number 4. We have already completed invasive species, aquatic species, a lot of terrestrial species, and lastly now we are going to see birds and some other miscellaneous species, right? So when I talk of birds and when I introduce birds, we will be talking of Great Indian Bustard in this. We'll talk of Lesser Florican, Great Indian Hornbill, Indian Skimmer, Monarch Butterfly and Blue Duke, both of them are butterflies, Red Sanders, Shisham, that is Dalbergia sisu, and last is Neel Kurunji. Okay, so quickly we'll have a look. And before I begin, there are two prominent things with respect to birds. One is State of the World's Bird Report, which is published by, not very difficult to remember, this is Bird Life International. Okay, so this is going to publish the state of the state of the world's bird report. Okay, so that is number one. Okay, and second thing that you need to know here is the Asian Water Bird Census. This has two bodies. By the way, this does not have BirdLife International. This is why I included it here. BirdLife International is State of the World's Bird Report. Asian Water Bird Census is Wetland International and Bombay Natural History Society. Okay, so these two things you should know: what is State of the World's Bird Report and what is Asian Water Bird Census. Now with that said, I'll begin one by one. So number one, very important, Great Indian Bustard, right? So Great Indian Bustard is the largest amongst the four other bustard species, which include Bengal Florican, one is Lesser Florican and one is McQueen. Although we don't have to remember the other species, but still, if you know it, that's good. Now, why was this in news? So Great Indian Bustard, a lot of deaths of Great Indian Bustard were happening, okay, because it was colliding with the transmission or electricity transmission lines, which is why the Supreme Court intervened. Okay, the case name is known as M.K. Ranjit Singh versus Union of India. In this case, the Supreme Court ordered that the bird needs to be protected. Okay, so you need to have safety devices for Great Indian Bustard. That is number one. Now, a large population of Great Indian Bustard is found in Desert National Park. So that is one thing you need to know, Desert National Park in Rajasthan. Apart from that, it is also found in Gujarat, then in parts of central India and also in parts of South India. So it is going to be found in it. So it is not just endemic to one location, but it can be found in other areas as well. Okay. And apart from that, there was this Oran Bachao Yatra, which was again done in Rajasthan. Oran basically is the sacred grove of Rajasthan, which also houses a lot of natural population of Great Indian Bustard. So Oran Bachao Yatra, basically related to Great Indian Bustard, was also in the news. So because of Oran Bachao Yatra and this Supreme Court specific case, this was basically spoken about. Okay. And by the way, when I say Great Indian Bustard, not just this, Lesser Florican also, again the Supreme Court basically said that these bird diverters have to be installed. I already told you, Bengal Florican, Lesser Florican, Great Indian Bustard, all these are different bustard species. So Supreme Court had basically said that bird diverters have to be installed, and Supreme Court said it has to be done for Lesser Florican as well as Great Indian Bustard. Okay, so this is the main, at least, news here that you should be roughly aware about. And similar to Great Indian Bustard, it is also found in a lot of these habitats, grasslands, in a lot of these areas. That is Lesser Florican. Okay, so that is a part of the news that is right. Okay, again, one thing common for both Great Indian Bustard, it is also critically endangered. By the way, Great Indian Bustard is a part of species recovery program as well, and Lesser Florican, this is also critically endangered. All right. So this is something you need to know. Now, Great Indian Hornbill was in news because of a high rate of deforestation seen in northeast, and very specifically, we had seen a high rate of deforestation in Arunachal. Okay, so there are two specific regions where a lot of high deforestation was seen through remote sensing satellites. So one is Papam Reserve Forests, okay, and the other is Pake or Pakhui Tiger Reserve. Okay, so both these areas houses a lot of population of great Indian hornbill, number one, and deforestation was seen in both. Okay, Papam Reserve Forest and also Pakhui. Now for Pakhui, you can just write down in Pakhui Tiger Reserve, you find Nishi tribes. Okay, Nishi tribes are found. So Great Indian Hornbill. So because of this, it was in the news. Additionally, Great Indian Hornbill is found not just in Arunachal Pradesh or parts of northeast, it is also found in Western Ghats. Okay, so even this is something that you need to be additionally aware about, that it is also found in Western Ghats. Fine. So this is why, so rate of deforestation, two protected areas, one is Papam Reserve Forest and the second is Pakhui or Pake Tiger Reserve. In both, we had seen a decline in forest areas which led to overall decline in the population of Great Indian Hornbill. Alright. So even this is something that you need to be aware about. Alright. Moving forward is Indian skimmer. Now this was also in news. So what is this? It was flocking in the Koringa Wildlife Sanctuary. Where is Koringa Wildlife Sanctuary? Is Andhra Pradesh. We had also seen the collaring exercise of fishing cats happening in the same area of Koringa Wildlife Sanctuary. Okay, so it is found in western and eastern areas, and we are talking of the coastal estuaries. Okay, what are estuaries? Estuaries are ecotones where the fresh water of the rivers meets the salty waters of the oceans. Okay, so this is important. Second, Chambal River is an important nesting ground for this Indian skimmer. Okay, again, now what is Chambal River also like famous for? It is also famous for ghadials. So that is also some one thing you can be knowing. Okay, it is protected in Schedule 1. You don't have to remember the schedules specifically, but in general, because we had seen a lot of population of them in Koringa, so that is why you need to be aware about. Okay, one more let's say bird species that you can be aware about, so you can just write it in your notes. This is light mantled albatross. Okay, light mantled albatross. Number one, if this is an albatross, this is found or seen in Antarctica. Okay, now for the very first time it has been seen in India, and that too in Rameshwaram coast. Okay, so basically it has been observed in Tamil Nadu. So this makes it a very rare kind of an appearance. Okay, although the scientists are saying that it can be because of different atmospheric changes and weather patterns. Otherwise, because you would only see this in Antarctic region, and now we have seen this in this Tamil Nadu portion. Okay, so this is light mantled albatross, because this is something which does not usually happen. So you can get a question, UPSC can simply trick you in saying that this is endemic to India. Of course, this is not endemic to India. Light mantled albatross. Fine. Great Indian Hornbill we have already covered, right? We've also seen Indian skimmer. Now let's move ahead. Now let's talk about vultures. Vultures in general are spoken about a lot. Okay, so 2 or 3 things I want to tell you about vultures. Number one, this vulture, just a second. Yeah, Vulture Conservation Breeding Center has been set up in Pinjore, Haryana. Vulture Conservation Breeding Center. Okay, that's the first important update that you need to know. Second, death of vultures has often been in the news. Now, number one, what causes death of vultures? So there are 4 basic things, drugs that you should know. Diclofenac is the most common. I think you must be aware about it. Diclofenac. Apart from it, you have aceclofenac, you have nimesulide, and you have ketoprofen. These are usually known as the fatal 4. So usually what happens, they are fed to the cattle. Okay, and these are basically pain relieving drugs. Now when the cattle dies, its carcass is basically fed by vultures, because vultures are scavengers. Now when they do that, this actually damages their kidney. Ultimately their neck droops down, they fall down and they die. Okay, so number one, diclofenac, aceclofenac, nimesulide, and ketoprofen. Now this leads to a lot of death and decline of these vulture species. Okay, and so first of all you need to know. Second, what you need to know, in India you have 9 species of vultures. Okay, so overall 9 species of vultures are found in India, and out of those 9 species, 4 species are critically endangered. Okay, 4 species are critically endangered, right? So That can also be asked. Additionally, Himalayan griffon vultures were also in news. Okay, why were they in news? They were dying because of consumption of endosulfan. What is endosulfan? That is also a persistent organic pollutant. Okay, so there was a death of Himalayan griffon vultures because of consumption of endosulfan. Endosulfan is a persistent organic pollutant. Okay, and also carbofuran. Okay, so primarily carbofuran was being consumed by these Himalayan griffon vultures that led to their death. Fine. So we've seen Fatal 4, we've seen the Vulture Conservation Breeding Center coming up in Pinjore, Haryana. Okay. Next is this wren babbler, and oftentimes you would only just know the name, and if you see the name and the image, that will be very clear. Again, this is a bird. Okay, so this new species has been discovered in Arunachal Pradesh. Now again, with Arunachal Pradesh, you should think of Great Indian Hornbill. Okay, the decline that is happening in those two areas. Fine. So this is one, and same thing. This new species of elusive, like this is not usually found, and this has been discovered in Arunachal Pradesh. Okay, so which is why, and this has been published in India's Birds, which is a peer-reviewed journal. Okay, so this also, wren babblers also made a lot of news. Okay, because their new species was discovered in Arunachal Pradesh. Okay, now again moving on, when we talk of butterfly, see, butterfly till now has been asked only once. Okay, and that too when we basically say year of 2016. That year a lot of current affairs questions were asked. All right, so here they had asked you blue mormon. That was by Maharashtra. So Maharashtra had become the first state to have its state butterfly. Okay, so that was one. So here two butterflies are in use. One is monarch butterfly and other is blue duke. I've added images for both. Okay, so why this one? So what has happened? IUCN basically has mentioned this. They've added, first of all, this monarch butterfly in the category endangered. Okay, so this is important for us to know. Okay, second thing, what is famous for monarch butterfly, that its migration cycle or the migration period is the maximum or the longest amongst all the known insect species. So monarch butterfly is famous for having the longest migration period. Okay, and second, IUCN has put this in the endangered list. Okay, so that is one thing you need to know. Okay, then blue duke again is a butterfly. This is present in Sikkim. Okay, so there were news that Sikkim is wanting to declare this as its state butterfly, or it already has a state, let's say, butterfly. Okay, like there's already one more contender, that is Krishna peacock. So now between blue duke and Krishna peacock, they're trying to have a state butterfly. We're talking of the state of Sikkim. Okay, so sometimes they can just ask you blue duke was in the news, what is that? Okay, with monarch butterfly they cannot trick you, you already know that. Okay, now next 2 or 3 more updates that I want to tell you. Red sanders, okay, often in the news. So number one, because of its number one operation known as Rakht Chandan. Okay, so I think name is good enough for you to understand what is Rakht Chandan, related to smuggling and like capturing of this illegal red sanders. This is by Directorate of Revenue Intelligence. Okay, so what is red sanders? Number one, it is endemic species. Okay, endemic to Eastern Ghats. Okay, not Western Ghats. Please make sure you make this point correct. And when we say Eastern Ghats, I'm also talking of specifically Sheshachalam Hills or the area of Arunachal Pradesh. So number one is that. Second, this is non-aromatic. Okay, and then of course this is heavily trafficked. Okay, because of this particular red sanders is also having a lot of medicinal benefits as well. Okay, so because of combined medicinal benefit, etc., cosmetic products, it is used. Fine. So number one, that is something you need to be aware about. Okay, second, its IUCN status, now this also had changed. Right now it is endangered. Okay, so don't think that this is getting heavily trafficked, so it must be critically endangered. No, this is endangered. So let me again recap. DRI has seized the sanders in an operation known as Operation Rakht Chandan. Number one, endemic to Eastern Ghats. Okay, and specifically Andhra Pradesh. It is non-aromatic. Okay, and then its export is prohibited under what? The foreign trade policy prohibits the export of red sanders. Okay, Then you have Dalbergia Sisu. Maybe many of you don't know what is Dalbergia Sisu. That is actually the scientific name for Shisham. Okay, so Shisham was in the news, and by the way, not just this year, but since the last 4 years, the government of India is trying. Okay, the government of India is basically trying that the rules for export of Shisham, etc., be eased. So earlier, what I used to happen, they were put under high, let's say, restrictions under CITES agreement. Okay, so basically, the government wanted to relax this. Why? Because so that the local manufacturers, all the people who are dependent on this particular wood, they get a fair bit of relaxation. Okay, so that is one. This is also known as rosewood. Okay, now very important, what is it? Is it evergreen or deciduous? So this is deciduous. Okay, again, and why is this being discussed? Because of the recent COP19 of CITES. I told you in COP19 CITES, we have already discussed 2 species of turtles, one gecko, sea cucumber, and one was Dalbergia sisu, that is Shisham. And in Shisham, think of the overall large interest which the government of India wants to protect. The government wants to protect the interest of these people, which is why this whole initiative and this whole effort is being done, so that the rules for export can be, let's say, maybe made easier, so that export can happen of Dalbergia sisu. Okay. And then you have Neelkurunji. What is this Neelkurunji? So Neelkurunji, again, number one, this is protected under Wildlife Protection Act of 1972. Okay, this is very famous for blooming in 12 years. It blooms, etc., once in 12 years. Okay, so that is important. And where you would find it? So this is endemic to Neelkurunji, is endemic to Nilgiris. So it is found in Tamil Nadu, Kerala, and Karnataka. Okay, so this is going to be found in these 3 regions. Okay, so this is going to bloom in every 12 years. Okay, fine. So this has been put in Schedule 2 overall for protection. Now we are dealing with the protection of this in Wildlife Protection Act. Okay, right. So this was also basically in the news, this Neelkurunji. Okay, and in general the cultivation, etc., and the which you can do that, but possession of this in general, okay, is not allowed. Okay, the possession and the cultivation, both of them, by the way, is not allowed. So you can just write down cultivation and its possession is not allowed. So which is why it is under this a scheduled species of Wildlife Protection Act. Okay, with that said, I'll just quickly recap what all we've done so far, and then we'll end with other portions. We saw 2 different reports: State of the World's Bird Report, Asian Water Bird Census. Fine. We saw Great Indian Bustard, we saw Glesser floricon, we saw Great Indian Hornbill, we saw Indian Skimmer. Okay, and I also discussed about light mantled albatross. We saw vultures, wren babbler, we saw two specific butterflies, we saw red sanders, we saw Dalbergia sisu, we saw Neelkurunji. Okay, again, one more thing, you have a very famous report related to biodiversity, because in these 4 lectures I've covered species in general, that is known as Living Planet Report, published by WWF. Even that you should again know. I've already covered that in report section. Okay, again, very important in this, right? Now I did not cover elephants specifically. Why? Because I've already covered this under Elephant Whisperers documentary. This you can see that in the live section in Sunya's YouTube channel. Okay, so see that very comprehensively I've covered elephants overall. So do that from here. And in HYT now we've covered a lot of topics. In case you guys have not practiced environment section specifically, 100 questions, most important questions on environment you can practice, and you can also watch the video for that, right? And again, those of you who are watching this video for the first time, go back and see the environment and ecology high yielding topic series. Okay, there you will see a lot of important videos. So if you want to quickly cover these topics for upcoming prelims, you can do so, right? And the prelims crash course is still ongoing. In those of you who want to cover the topic very comprehensively, can do so. All these lectures will be available at once, and you'll also get a lot of let's say very comprehensive notes alongside, right? Now this brings me to the end of species on the part 4 of species, and I hope in this 1, 2, 3, 4 I've covered all the very important species and given you decent information to attempt and write the let's say questions, right? So I hope this is useful for your preparation. Since the exam is near, only what I'll say, keep revising. Okay, as much as you can revise, do that. Okay, these short lectures are just to aid your preparation. Okay, so keep on revising. All the very best. Thank you.